Today's episode is brought to you by Full of Grace Divine Designs. The Holy Family might not have been financially rich, but they do give us a great example of how to handle our finances. What do Jesus, Mary, and Joseph had to tell about our money? Well, keep listening to this episode of The Catholic Money Show. Right, JMJ at the top of this one. Here we go.
Let's do it. Anybody else write that at the top of their paper or their journal entry?
Or their blackboard.
Or their blackboard? I've been doing it for going on 30 years now.
Wow. It's cute to see the kids do it.
It is. I love it.
I like seeing that.
Yes.
Because you're dedicating, you're giving over, you are asking for the help of the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and you can do the same thing. Maybe write it on maybe after you sign the back and put it in the bank, maybe put a little JMJ on the back of the check.
Maybe.
Draw a JMJ on your wallet.
I wouldn't say many people think of looking to the Holy Family when they think of personal finances or handling or managing their money. But honestly, I just don't know if there is a better example. And we're going to talk about that in this episode.
I mean, in so many things. You
in
hardly
so many
find
things.
better examples.
In so many
things. So why
things.
not your money?
But the wisdom of our world oftentimes is foolishness compared to the lessons that we learn from the Holy Family. And that is what we are going to dissect in this episode. And I'm excited to dive in. But first, I just want to talk about, why is this even important and why is this relevant outside of this being Advent? So Holy Family is top of mind for many of our meditations right now. Many of our discussions are involved in kind of their plight and the difficulties and challenges that they were up against. And one in particular I want to highlight is just the flight to Egypt.
Ooh.
I oftentimes think that story it almost feels like a throwaway sentence.
You don't think about it too much, huh?
People can forget about how frustratingly inconvenient that probably would have been.
Running for your lives.
And then just what it meant and how many years they were displaced, fleeing from their home to Egypt with infant Jesus, leaving behind stable income, family, friends, the home that they knew. And just what a challenge that must have been and how much trust was involved. Especially, just the income piece alone, because Joseph was a carpenter. So he obviously built up a lot of local clientele, I'm guessing. So to go somewhere brand new, it's just a real big challenge.
And I'm sure he didn't have all his tools with him either.
Right.
You just start from scratch.
Yeah. So that story of vulnerability, and certainly it was financial vulnerability as well. Yes, absolutely. Reminds me, though, of the very first Advent when we started Wallet Win. Wallet Win began in November of 2017.
Yeah.
October, November. And while we had successfully kind of welcomed our very first class, a small class of maybe 16 or 20 students in that very, very first cohort of students who went through our stuff, we really didn't know what we were doing. And we didn't know we would probably we knew we had to have another class eventually, but we didn't know when or how to do it. We were in the middle of people enrolled in our Catholic money course. It was called something different at the time, but they enrolled in it. And essentially every Monday morning we would wake up at 3 a.m. and record. And then sometime by like 7 or 8 a.m. you had edited it and then updated it and dropped it as another module.
And then we'd start writing and creating the next week.
Yes. So we did this for 7 or 8 weeks. I forget how many lessons or modules we had and the different lessons that were under it. But our students were literally every week getting brand new content that we were just creating and dropping and releasing on the spot. So that basically took up all of November and all of most of December. And I just remember that Advent being very vulnerable, very scary. We didn't have, outside of, welcoming that class in November, we had $0 in income that December because we were too busy getting the class out to people to sell anything else. $0 income. We were living off
Hmm.
savings. It felt highly vulnerable. We didn't know if things were going to work or if our family would be provided for, but we knew we were just being asked to try this, to move forward, and to trust that God was going to be with us. So I remember that Advent feeling very linked in with the Holy Family and uniting our personal finances or lack of to them and just asking them for grace to trust and for peace.
Yeah.
And we went into that Christmas season, and I don't think anybody in our family would look back and be like, oh, wow. Remember that really bald Christmas where
Christmas, we got rice for
nobody
gifts.
got anything, nobody had joy, that's not the story.
He just sat around and cried.
We were just excellent at finding free or low cost things or thrifting or whatever. I think it was a $50 Christmas because we were trying to conserve as much in savings as possible.
Yeah.
So anyway.
You don't always have to be on the edge of destitution.
No.
To look to the Holy Family for financial inspiration. But I think a lot of times you might think that because we do think about, oh, wow, part of the mind-blowing reality of the incarnation is not only does God become man, the creator becomes the creature, like that's enough already to melt your face off. But even in doing that, he's coming in near the bottom of the heap. He's not coming in to some worldly royal family. He's not coming into some cush lifestyle. And we know that continues throughout his life, right? The Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, that he was there in poverty.
Jesus wasn't rolling off his passive income revenue.
I've got all these rentals in Jericho. No, he wasn't. And so you can think, okay, yeah. Well, if that's your situation, okay, then you could look. No, there's always ways and reasons to look to the Holy Family, because could you think of a better family? And money, the way you interact with money and understand it and use it, is such a big part of family life. Well, how could they not be incredible with that too? Mm-hmm. So let's look. We pulled out a couple lessons, I guess, to pull from the Holy Family in this episode, and let's go through some of those now.
I guess I just want to say, that story might have sounded like, yes, you need to be in dire straits to lean on them, but I would say this. It invited us kind of into that relationship and asking for their intercession and being closely linked to them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes our circumstances can help us get out of our way and discover something like that. Now, we haven't been in that situation since. Praise God. Our business has succeeded. It has moved on. It has grown. Other opportunities have come our way, etc. But we didn't blow them off and leave them there in that really tight Advent. They've come with us for the rest of the journey. And I think no matter our level of wealth or the resources that the Lord will entrust to us as good stewards, he entrusts to his stewards different amounts according to their callings, giftedness, ability. We already know that from other stories in Scripture. Even if we are called to the heights of wealth and a vast fortune, I think it's even more important to draw on and unite yourself to the Holy Family. And particularly, just what you were talking about, Jonathan, choose, like our Lord did, things that don't necessarily always make sense from a worldly standpoint, but because of the spiritual benefit and gain. So we're going to discuss about that as well.
Yes. Now, we talked about it a bit, but the first lesson you can take from the Holy Family is trusting in God's provision. That our Father is a good Father. He wants what's good for us. He takes care of us. And we see this, the Holy Family talking about flight to Egypt, all sorts of situations. But I see that this is something, when I was going through this episode, I was also trying to look forward. What are some ways that we could see the evidence of growing up this way in Jesus? And so I thought, when I thought about trusting in God's provision, I'm thinking I don't need to go out there and do it myself, pull myself up by the bootstraps and grasp after all the things that I want. And I thought, oh yeah, that's exactly it. Jesus wasn't grasping for things. It says in 2 Philippians, right? Do nothing from selfishness or conceit, but in humility. Count others better than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interest of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which was in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, being born in likeness of men, and so on. So he's not grasping after what we all know, like, is his. He's not even doing that. I certainly don't need to be grasping after material things or grasping and worrying and going crazy about, the welfare of my family, how I'm going to provide for them. It's going to be there. I'm going to have to do my part, of course, but I just need the biggest part of my part is following my Father's lead and how he wants to take care of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that trust in God's provision, that abandonment to his providence, that open posture, that stance of confidence, that's really where we need to be. And we see it echoed in each member of the Holy Family in different circumstances that they're placed in. But it does us a whole lot of good, especially when it comes to money, because financial anxiety is something that I would gander. Is that a word?
Yeah, but I think you would just guess.
Okay. That word just came up. Maybe I was trying to say guess. Anyway, I would think most people are not taking financial anxiety to confession. I don't think that they are taking their plotting, scheming, staying up late awake at night, grasping type behaviors to confession. I really don't think people know that is the opposite of this trust in God's provision.
Yeah.
We can, again, do the work, but then ultimately inside of our interior life, there needs to be peace, confidence, and trust that I've done what I can and the Lord will move and work for me, even if the external circumstances don't look exactly how I desire them to or maybe prefer them to in this exact moment.
I like how you talked about that and at first it's like, what are you saying? Because at least I don't think it's necessarily a sin to have some worry about your finances.
No.
To feel a little stressed. It's getting a little tight. But then it's how are you responding? That scheming, the plotting, the obsession. This is what I'm thinking about over and over. That's where we're starting to go into that territory. So I really like the way that you brought that up.
Yeah, anxiety about the finances can be a very real situation, very real, urgent matter. And you need to address it and figure out things. That should all kind of be above water, if you will. It's mostly just an emotion, a human reaction. You do what you need to do to kind of figure things out. Boom, boom, boom. If it goes below the water and it's really just, it goes past being a tip of the iceberg thing and there's actually a giant berg underneath the surface, that's where we can get really tangled up into lack of trust and just unhelpful lies around money, in particular God's provision, because really in the catechism, doesn't it state it that sin happened because they lost trust in their creator?
Yes.
And that's really what I see a lot of financial anxiety when you boil it down into the behaviors that end up stemming out of it. It goes right to that lack of trust, thinking God's holding out. He's not showing up. I got to do this thing. Where's he at? It's that lie. It's so central. And there's just nothing like money to poke it and stir it and put it on full display in front of our life.
Very good.
In a very tangible way.
Yes. I don't want this to turn into a whole episode about this, but I'd say the other end, I think, is no good is in thinking and acting like, my dad is rich. She's got it all. I can get whatever I want. And just like going crazy. I think can be put forward as a way to falsely like baptize consumerism. Of just like,
kind of like prosperity gospel.
Yes. Like, of course he wants you to have this. Of course, God loves you. Why wouldn't he want the best? Like
Joyce Meyer, Joel Osteen type of characters who are
like that's no
lecturing
good
others to give them money as they're dripping in a diamond necklace.
I'd say those words. But that other end of like, well, yes, like get the best, because aren't I a daughter of the king or a son of the king? Yes, you are.
But did Jesus act like
that? That's not exactly. Yes, the kingdom is not of this world. Big thank you to today's sponsor, Full of Grace Divine Designs. They make handmade jewelry all centered around beautiful images and medallions of, Jesus, Mary, the saints, religious jewelry at some of its finest. These are all made out of, especially they take, older designs, vintage designs, European designs, and kind of remake them. These are all made especially for Full of Grace Divine Designs. And then, of course, handmade in their studio in Texas. This business has been creating beautiful works of wearable art for about 18 years. It started actually when the founder was widowed, and she took the life insurance and put it into this business to really stretch it out to provide for her kids and her after her husband passed away. This is incredible business, really beautiful stuff. So check them out. It is Full of Grace Divine Designs. So you find them at fullofgracedd.com. The DD's for Divine Designs. That's Full of Grace Divine Designs. fullofgracedd.com. That's fullofgracedd.com. All right. The second thing that we can learn from the Holy Family is to live simply and prioritize, of course, your needs over your wants.
Doesn't mean no wants.
Yes.
No, not at all.
No, of course. They didn't seem like they were in the lap of luxury. And I think you can tell this in even the nativity story. Because if Joseph,
it was a stable.
If Joseph, I think because of the stable, if Joseph was only used to the finer things in life, he never would have even accepted the stable. He never would have even brought that forth as an option. He wouldn't have entertained that. And if the same on Mary's account, she would never have accepted that from Joseph if she was just, the living in the lap of luxury. But because it's like, well, I can give you this stable, I guess. That'd be great. To accept that, both on Joseph's part and Mary's part, we see that they are accustomed to simplicity. And it seems like that's something then they would be able to carry through the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can embrace this in our own lives, just through very practical activities like budgeting. We love budgeting. Can't say it enough.
Budgeting.
CatholicBudgetGuide.com. You can get our Catholic Guide to Budgeting. It's a video class with, I think, a couple of worksheets. But the budgeting is going to help us see clear as day, are we embracing simplicity at least in some of the categories of our life? Because as Catholics, yes, we're not made to just live in the lap of luxury in every single component and aspect of our life. We're not. Spiritually dangerous. It'll lull us to sleep and complacency, and we will not be fruitful, effective disciples. It's just one of the ways that the enemy lulls us to sleep. We got to stay sharp and scrappy in some capacity. Maybe some areas are not as simple as others, but you gotta, in the budget, it'll tell you if you gotta have a couple of things that are pretty dang simple. It keeps us grounded and attached to this humility that our Lord chose and displayed. But then when we are budgeting, it's also making us and forcing us to be confronted with, am I making enough room for generosity? If I've gotten to the 10%, could I actually go higher? Like, can I see in the budget that I'm way overblowing in all of these wants categories,
Mm.
and I'm just still given 10% or less? Like, it will show you right there clear as day that, okay, yeah, no, I could be giving much more and being a little more simple in some of these other areas that aren't as necessary.
Mhm.
And then, of course, eliminating waste,
Oh,
because a lot of
yes.
times we have waste inside of our budgets, and that is not being a good steward. And I can see the Holy Family just not being a family of
Mm.
wastefulness. That's just wouldn't seem to be a virtue that they would possess. That's not a virtue.
Okay.
That's like the opposite of who you would. You don't even have to have probably. I don't know. You might not even be a
Everybody should not
practicing
want
Christian.
waste.
You could, yeah, just guess that the Holy Family would not be some wasteful family who would just be throwing out a bunch and being poor stewards.
Yeah. So as you are going through figuring out your budgets, think about, what are our needs? Make sure those get funded first. Then look at when you're looking at your wants, and you should be able to afford some wants, pick out the ones that are most important to your family, the ones that are going to have the biggest impact and mean the most. Not all wants are created equal. So let's not spend equally and treat it that way. Let's look at the ones that are really going to do something for our family.
Mm-hmm.
Leads us into the next one of using resources responsibly, right? Joseph was a carpenter, and we've already kind of figured out he probably wasn't very wasteful. So you probably used materials very well. Same with the way I'm sure that Mary ran the home. And I'm, again, trying to play a little detective here. I think we can see this too in Jesus, because he feeds the 5,000. He can miraculously make food just happen. And at the end of it, he asks the apostles to go pick up the leftovers. We're bringing those with us. Even though it seems he could just, here's some lunch. Nope, they're going to have leftovers because we're not letting things go to waste. We're going to be responsible stewards of all the material goods that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. And we should do that too.
So how this could actually look in our lives. I mean, I think of that quote, I say to you often.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to totally forget it now because I can't recall quotes on
The spot.
I just can't. Use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. Okay, I got it. The brain is still online. Yeah. Maybe that's the sauna helping the brain fog pass through. But this idea of that I would say the greatest generation, our grandparents, they embodied this so beautifully. And I think, we're millennials, Gen Z, we could really take a page out of their book.
Yeah.
And because right now we live in just such a drippingly consumeristic society, throwaway culture, throwaway fashion, throwaway everything is what it kind of feels like nowadays. And just constant marketing. So this idea of how that could play out practically is buying used.
Yeah.
Get to the thrift store. I think it is starting to rise in popularity, and it's not just because you couldn't afford new. Those days are gone. People are now realizing that, no, there's some really good things to find, and I don't need to go fork out an arm and a leg to find them. And why let all this stuff just go to a landfill when I could give it a second life and it blessed the family before me and it could bless my family now? That's fantastic. Or you could kind of strategically or intentionally wait for a sale. Instead of just going out and just instantly buying something because you just thought of it. The holidays are coming up, or Black Friday or Memorial Day, or there might be a sale coming up in 3-4 weeks out. Just be patient. Yeah. Wait on it.
Or the end of a season, like, a new grill or getting a smoker. So that could be pretty cool. All right, well, maybe you just hold off till the end of the summer where they're trying to get rid of a bunch. There you go. They're going to be cheaper then.
Yep. Or the idea of fixing and mending things.
Ooh, yeah.
This one's a challenge for me, personally. If something's broke, I don't always know how to fix it. And sometimes I get intimidated by the idea of fixing it, but you're really good at it. So I kind of just create a pile of stuff for you to fix.
I just figure it's already broken. It'll just be twice broken if I mess it up, which isn't a big deal.
Even mending or knitting or sewing, I still hand that to you. I give you all the things. You're just better at that kind of stuff. But that's another way to just elongate.
I've done a lot of sock darning in my life.
Oh, have you?
Oh, yeah.
What's that mean?
You sew up the holes in the sock. Keep
You
socking.
have like 1 million socks.
Why, you think they last?
I've been throwing away your socks with holes for years.
Well.
You just don't know. I wait
I
until
used to darn all when I was single.
Wow.
I'd sit around and have my basket of whole socks, and I just.
There's something a little bit therapeutic in that as well. There really is. But just being responsible with our resources and taking it seriously, that these were entrusted to me, and I'm going to be accountable for every single dollar that I received, and then how I handled it and spent it on the day of judgment. That is absolutely certain. No, I'm not talking about on the day of judgment there's going to be like a
God's going to have one of
looking
those,
over
he's going to have like
the
spectacles.
Somebody from the heavenly IRS is not going to come. But it's just collectively part of that, how we lived and chose to live our lives and conduct ourselves. It'll be part of that. And if we're habitually wasteful, it's just, but then trying to live virtue in all these other areas of our lives, there's something off there. Those should be integrated. The more we try to grow in holiness, the more resourceful and responsible you would think you would become.
Yeah.
At least that's what we've noticed.
Mm-hmm. The next is when you're making plans and your ideas and all this, you should have a family-focused financial plan.
What do you mean by that?
So, the Holy Family, like they are the family to look to and to emulate all that. So they are perfectly, it would seem, loving each other and keeping each other's goodwill and desires and all those things like in the top of mind. There can be a temptation to look at our finances as mine, or at least some of them. I went to work, I made the money, here we go. You went to work, that's your money, this is my money. But it's a team sport. You are a family now. And so handling your finances should be as a family. Sure, you went out to work and you made the money, but you brought it home for everybody. Right? I went out, I bought the pizza, I picked it up, I drove it home. I'm not the only one eating pizza. Everybody else gets some slices. So when we look at our finances, we need to treat them as the family things that they are, and they need to serve the family. We need to take into account all of the needs, all of the wants and desires and dreams and all that, every member of the family, as we are putting our plans and our budgets together.
Would you also say having it be family-centered would also mean you are keeping your work or ability to earn money in check a bit so that it is truly always at the service of the family, and that your family is not constantly at the service of you trying to just make more or work more, etc.?
Yeah. I've got, right, you think of it as I have a job to provide for my family. If you're single, to provide for my needs, the things that I need to buy in order to fulfill what God's asking me to do. Not the other way around. I don't eat and sleep so that I can then go to work. I'm not living for work. We're working so we can pay for our living.
Mm-hmm. So but I do think that's one of those tricky slips that the enemy can entice us into. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. And that's something that, you wouldn't have seen in the Holy Family. They were really keeping that family-centered plan. in place, guiding their financial decisions and the way they manage money.
Yeah. And I think the last thing to talk about here, at least in this episode, in regards to the Holy Family and finances, is humility. Being humble and not always, especially in the eyes of others.
Mm.
So certainly the Holy Family wasn't rich or wealthy by the world standards, but we know, wow, I bet they were really, they were rich. What a rich family life they must have enjoyed.
Well, studies have shown us, and sorry to interrupt your point, but that the level of money it has an impact up to a certain point, but the only resource that if it keeps going up, do you keep going up in direct relation to is community and relationships.
Mm.
That's the only one that you just really can't exhaust, the joy that it and the returns that it'll just keep giving you.
Mm.
Money exhausts at a certain point.
Yeah.
But yeah, rich relationships. And imagine, the relationship in their family. Awesome.
But not everybody would see that, right? Not everybody understood what was going on with the Holy Family. We certainly see this with Jesus, right? There's that part he's teaching, and this guy isn't the carpenter. Isn't this Mary's son? We know this guy. What's he doing? They didn't understand what was going on, who they really were,
Sure.
what was really important. So there's going to be people in your life. They're going to see you prioritizing the things that you're prioritizing, the way you raise your family, the way you're spending your money to raise your family, instead of the flashier car, the bigger house, the longer vacations, the whatever it might be. They might think you're a little crazy. They might assume you're broke. And that's going to be your neighbors. It's going to be people you drive past. It could be maybe some of your extended family members aren't going to get it sometimes. And that's all right. We don't need to be understood or loved or lauded by the world. We know where we're trying to go. We know real success is ending up in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
To look to the Holy Family and how we should be living in our family.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it might look a little weird, but that's what's important.
Right. And the wealthiest Catholics that I know who also are very grounded spiritually, they intentionally choose to have a few things that are far much humbler than their wealth could allow in their life. 100%. They could have better X, Y, or Z, but they want to fly under the radar, at least on some things, and to embrace a little bit of this misunderstanding. Other people are sitting there saying, you could have all of this, all of this stuff, but you don't. It's a little bit confusing. And they're oftentimes choosing to prioritize very heavy financial donations to different organizations, causes, ministries, etc., which is really beautiful. And a lot of them don't talk about that or share those exact numbers and whatnot. And I think it's really beautiful. I absolutely know, when you were talking about this in neighbors and you said vehicles, you're talking about our rusty van. Weren't you? You were thinking about it. But for those of you who don't know, our second van is a 200,000 mile Chrysler Town and Country that, for whatever reason, absolutely just turned into a complete rust bucket. And the ceiling has fallen.
Well, the ceiling liner,
the ceiling liner has fallen.
Pinned up.
And it's been one of those things where, we've left it on the driveway. And I 100% know that neighbors are thinking things about us.
It's not, I don't think it's hyperbole to say it is the worst looking car in the neighborhood.
But I can also guarantee you that we're probably in a better financial position than 90% of our neighborhood. But they are probably all very confused at why would these people
It's the second car. We don't use it very much. Why would we get some expensive thing?
But but I think that there have been moments where it's rubbed on us, and I personally have wanted it gone. But then I always come back to, I just want it gone because of pride.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with it functionally. And we actually have a different van that is fantastic. And, I can drive places. And it's not like that I'm embarrassing our family when we show up places.
Mm.
It's just because of pride. And so personally, the Texeras will probably drive that rusty van or keep that as our second car for as long as humanly possible until it literally dies, just as a point of choosing humility. And I really think all of us need to have some version of that in our life because of the spiritual fruit that it actually does bring us. So there you go. I knew you were thinking of that. But it really can be so good for us.
Absolutely. So thinking back over these areas of your life, these lessons that we can learn from the Holy Family of trusting in God's provision, living simply, using our resources wisely, having that family-centered financial plan, and practicing humility. Maybe pick one of those to really hone in on this week. Dude, what's something that you can do to lean in to one of those a little bit more? Go for that. Let us know how it goes. If you're watching on YouTube or in Spotify, you can leave a comment. Let us know how it goes or how the Holy Family inspires you to handle your finances in a different way. We would love to hear about that. And I know there's somebody who would love to hear about the Catholic Money Show. Maybe share this episode with them. Just hit the little share icon in your podcast player and send it off to them, even right now. So thank you again. We mentioned the Catholic Guide to Budgeting earlier in the episode. You can find that at catholicbudgetguide.com. And you mentioned about sins and money. You can get our
financial examination of conscience.
Yep, walletwin.com/examination. You can download that right there. It's waiting for you. And we will see you next week here on the Catholic Money Show. And until then,
bye for now.
This episode was sponsored by Full of Grace Divine Designs.